All right, this is DLT, Data Load Tool, and DuckDB. Let me give you a walkthrough of what I've done already. I didn't want to just take it from DLT init with the scaffolding. I try to make my videos a little more production ready and go a little deeper than just the traditional example. So we're going to walk through some things here. I set up with UV. I did a UV init package, and this repo will be available for you to look at online. When I did that UV init, I added an env, added my Pokemon API. I'm going to use a Pokemon API. Coincidentally, UV init uses that same API, but we're going to show some of the features a little more in depth than just hitting the API and storing data in DuckDB. I do my config. I'm using Pydantic Settings that grabs it in, so I have my settings class I can pass around. And then right now, just def main printing hello from dlt DuckDB. So just kind of the normal Python get ignore, nothing special there. MIT open source license. You guys can use this as much as you want once it gets out on the web. PyProject Toml, right now all I have is Pydantic Settings, but we will add a few more things kind of as we go through. So now we're going to the command line here, and I'm going to add some dependencies to my project. So I'm going to do a UV add, and I'm going to add DLT. Put the quotes around it because I have brackets, because I'm going to add the extra destinations here. So DLT DuckDB, and then file system. So what I'm going to do is I am going to pull down some data from the API. I'm going to pull data from a CSV, and we're going to let them merge together. I'm going to show you what that looks like, and then we're going to change some data, and you're going to see schema evolution, how it handles it, some of those tricky things that DLT handles under the hood that you don't have to wire up. Early days of my startup, we used FiveTran. FiveTran's very proud of their tool. They're very expensive. I'm a proponent of open source. Also, though, sometimes open source is a little toyish and doesn't really do what you need for the enterprise level. So there's a middle range there. I feel like we're not getting at. That's also what drove me to make some tools of my own, because that middle ground is that small business and startup is underserved. Okay, so DLT DuckDB. So from here, I'm going to init. I'm going to do DLT init, and then looking at the docs, let me make sure, because I'm a very huge fan of docs. Let me just make sure if I have to put the name. Yeah, let me put a name here. So we're just going to call this REST API, and we're going to say DuckDB, and we're going to scaffold that up. DuckDB. Let's see what happens here. DLT. Okay, no problems. So I just need to refresh my terminal. Yep. And let's do a UV. Well, it already did it for me. It put the, you notice how it automatically put the DLT-DuckDB virtual environment in front of it. So now I should be able to run the DLT. So DLT init REST API DuckDB. Cool. Yes, I do want to proceed. Will no longer be copied from verified source, but import. That's fine. Okay. And so you'll notice some things here. That gave me a DLT folder with a config and secrets. Okay, so secrets is kind of like your environment variables here for DLT. You're going to want to put that in get ignore to make sure that it doesn't make sure it's not in there. So we just need to add it. I'm not going to put anything in there yet, but I am going to .dlt. Whoops. I'm going to do this for the sake of completeness. Okay. Just to make sure nothing's overlooked, because I know a lot of tutorials glance over the small details, but I try not to do that. All right, so one of the things it gave us was a REST API pipeline template. That was the REST API. I put the template in there. This guy, source REST API. It gives you a little bit of information here. But one of the things I want to show is all this red flag. So it looks like it's a little bit of a mess over there as far as like refactoring and getting examples correct. So this will actually tell you how to fix this. It comes broken, and it looks like I need to add .typing here. But if I add .typing, then these break. So let me look at the docs and come up with the actual solution here that fixes this, so that if you guys want to run the actual test file on your own, you'll be able to. Okay, so cleaned up code here after doing some research that I'm sure you guys didn't want to sit here and wait around for. REST API resources and REST API source, those do come from .rest_API. Check connection's been moved. It now goes to .utils, and REST API config has been moved. It's now in .typing. Pendulum was a little different. It said that it was from dlt.common.pendulum. Yes, but it's also not in the all__all. So you just import pendulum and it works. You don't have to fight that whole thing because your type checkers don't like it. So this is the final working version that currently doesn't come with DLT install when you're moving fast. It's like any other engineering company, right? You're moving fast, you're breaking things because you're trying to push a lot out the door. It's a normal industry thing. I've been guilty of it myself. So this is how you fix it if you do want to run this. I'm not going to use this. I know I put a little bit here to fix it, but the reason I'm not going to use it is because you're not going to use just scaffolding in a production pipeline. That's kind of not how this works. So I'm just going to call this example, and we're going to keep it out the way for now. And I'm going to kind of show you the setup here so we can make this a little more concrete and a little more professional. But I do have this DLT folder now here with this config, and you see the config, and then you see this thing out here. But we're gonna change some things and add some things and do some things here to make this a little more of a production ready system. First folder I'm going to create here in this dbt DuckDB is going to be sources. This is where I'm going to put my sources for the DLT. So basically what happens here is I name some sources. I'm going to say I'm getting data from an API, I'm getting data from a file, and I'm going to kind of keep those organized here in this sources folder. The other thing I'm going to do in here is I'm going to put a data folder. So new folder here, and we're going to call this data, and I'm going to put some data in here. But as always, first thing you do if you ever put a data folder inside of your GitHub repo, you're going to want to git ignore it. Okay. However, in this case, since I want you to be able to reproduce, I'm going to put a small CSV file in here that I'm not going to git ignore, and I'm going to push it up just so you have my sample data. In the real world, wouldn't do it, right? I would git ignore this just to make sure that my data doesn't go up. So I just wanted to reiterate that before I threw data in there and got that going. So I'm going to, in this data folder, I'm going to move over Pokemon data. I have a CSV over here that I'm going to move over. It's called Pokemon Teams. I'm just going to copy it and come over here to the data folder and paste it. Maybe I'm not. Let's see if I could do it the manual way. Yep. Okay, so this is Pokemon. Since I'm using a Pokemon API, I had an LLM generate this data for me, just so I have something to join against and something to demonstrate. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to end up changing this schema. And a lot of times when you change a schema, that breaks your import, right? Somebody might change the name of something. Somebody may add a column. A lot of times if you've done it right, adding a column is transparent. but changing columns and removing columns is not. So we're going to see how DLT kind of handles some of that as well as the actual API endpoint data and kind of bringing these together. All right, now we're going to add some files to sources. Of course, I'm going to make it modular. This is the empty init.py ceremony. And then I'm going to add another file, and we'll just call that Pokemon API. Whoops, Pokemon API.py. And then we'll add one more source because I have this local file. So this is going to be team rosters.py. Okay, so now I have two sources, and we're going to add some code to these. That'll be where I'm getting data from, and then it's going to put data into DuckDB, and then we'll kind of talk about what we get for free here. Okay, so I'm going to do some copy paste. We'll go to the Pokemon API first, and I'll walk you through the code here, because basically it's going to demonstrate what's going on, and I have it docked up so the public repo kind of lets you know. And we're going to swap this out as well from my base URL where I have in my session. So let's start kind of light here. Instead of worrying about pagination and looping and all of the things, right, we let this be taken care of now by DLT. So the client has a base URL, takes care of the nested JSON. It's going to flatten the relational tables. You'll see that once we get to DuckDB load. Schema inference, create columns from the response shape, and add some pipeline metadata. So think about if you need to go back and look for specific things, you look for dates, you look for other things like mod dates and stuff. So this adds some metadata for you. And then these are endpoint params, limits 100, and they're in the resources. So that's kind of where I'm going to start for that resource. Okay, so I'm going to clean this file up just a touch here, and the reason I use Claude to generate some of these so I don't have to type all these by hand, but there is a downside of that is that some of this is not what I want. Also, just to be transparent with everybody, it's fine using LLMs to generate things as long as you understand what each line of code does. If you're just out here generating code and throwing it in your code base, you're opening yourself up for trouble. So just make sure that if you're using it to save time, because I don't want to have to type out this whole these whole doc strings here, make sure you're double checking it and understand exactly what's going in your code and how it works. So the next port I'm going to do, I'm just going to import settings here. I'm going to say from dlt underscore DuckDB. See, it tells me right there. So now I'm grabbing settings, and just in the top of this, before I get this return here, we're going to do a little things here. I'm going to do settings equals settings. However, I need to do a little, no, I have to have it ignore here. There's some syntax that, let me see if I give it a type hint if it knows what to do. Nope. Let me find that real quick and type that in. Okay, so this is type ignore. I think I could do import here. And good. And then this wants me to do settings.pokemon API, which is correct. Now I have this strongly typed base URL. So that should just kind of fix this naturally for me by pulling these settings around. Again, the reason you want to put your API in settings is because most times in production you have a different dev and production API endpoint. You don't want to mix those up or have to do a redeploy or try to figure out how to handle that in the code. You handle it in the environment variables. So this is the Pokemon API. Now I need team rosters. So for team rosters, I'm kind of going to do the same thing here. This is not correct, so let's clean this up. This becomes dlt DuckDB. I get settings again. I have to do the magic type ignore. And the type ignore, all that does is just tells Pylance that I'm getting these from somewhere, that I don't have to put it in there. And the reason it does that is when I go up here to my config, this has a default, but this doesn't have a default. And I normally don't. The only reason this is default data is because it's not something that really matters. Like if I put data anywhere, it does. But if this was a connection string, I wouldn't have a fallback. And the reason why is because if you put a dev connection string in here, push to production with no connection string, it falls back silently to dev. Now you're pushing production data down into dev. So fallbacks are in my mind a no-no for most things, unless it's something like a path that I don't care about, and then I'll throw this in there. Okay, so now I have team rosters. Let's go through team rosters. Team rosters again is just the source. Okay, so I'm creating another source. It's gonna infer schema from the types of CSV. The data is there. The name is Pokemon Teams CSV. You see that matches. And then read CSV here as part of the thing you get for free for DLT. And then CSV source with name team rosters. Now, one of the things that the LLM's been pushing me to do that I've been fighting, so it may push you to do as well, is to read things in using pandas or using this and then decorating this with an at DLT. Let me show it to you so that you recognize it immediately. I'll give you an example of this where the AI is doing it wrong and I have to correct it. So you see that it does dlt.resource and it's giving the file path, and then you're doing pathlib and you're importing it and you're using this resource to tell DLT that this is something that it needs to manage. The reason that's wrong is because DLT does it natively and I'm just writing extra code to do nothing when it's already built in. So be careful, right? When you're doing this, the LLM is going to push you to do it ways that are a little what I call janky. But this has the built-in source, so we're going to use the built-in thing here with the file system from DLT sources file system, and just let it do the work for us. Okay, that's what DLT is for. So we're going to let it do its thing. So again, I have a Pokemon API where this is doing all of the pagination for me, taking care of nested JSON, all the things that I would roll on my own. It's kind of doing here built in. Same kind of with team rosters. This is just file system, and it's going to do that. So when we run this, we should get a DuckDB database with some data in it. So let's do that next. All right, next piece here is in my init.py where I am running, again, my Py project toml is pointed at this main init.py. And if this was in another file, I would put the file there instead of just having it point directly at main. But it's pointing at main. I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to copy some things over. So let's do some things here. And I still want a def main. We're going to take def main down here for a minute. And I'm just going to put a temporary holder in there while I work. Doesn't do anything. It's just something that keeps it fresh in my mind for me. So I'm going to import DLT. Whoops, DL. Man, my typing is horrible. Okay, and now I need to from DLT underscore DuckDB sources. Yes, that is correct. And yes, that is correct. Okay, and now I need to go into my main. We're going to do a couple things here. And I'm going to do something that I don't like, and I'm going to fix before I push this repo up. These print statements, hate them. This should be a logger. Matter of fact, let me just do something real quick here to make sure I don't forget. I'm going to do a UV add Loguru. So I have a logger there instead. And let me do a quick config up here for Loguru because I'm not a fan of the print statements. I do log, and the reason I do log is because once you go to production, you really want to log and log to a specific place, and I want to get in that habit early on in my POC life here. So let me configure Loguru real quick. Okay, so to set up Loguru, if you haven't used it, and I have a video that kind of walks through it, but it's really simple. So from Loguru, you want to import logger, okay? And then, this isn't the part of the video, but this is something I always do, so you get to kind of come along for the ride. I also need to import sys with it. Yep, it does that. And now I need to remove the current handlers, add level info, and now it's a set. Now I have a logger. So now I just do logger.load, logger.info, load info, sure. And then logger.info, load info. Okay, cool. And so if you notice, I'm rewriting over these load infos, which is fine, right? Because once I'm done, I print it, then I load over it and I do it again. So this is the whole pipeline. Let me walk you through it. I added a logger just so I can log. DLT pipeline name, I'll just put DLT Pokemon. The destination is DuckDB. And the data set name is Pokemon data, so we'll see that in DuckDB. Sources should be registered under sources, so it should find those okay, because I have this Pokemon source I have imported well, and the team roster source that I have imported well. And so that should, in theory, just work. If it breaks, we fix it. That's what we do as data engineers. All right, so again, if it breaks, here we go. All right, so we're going to do a run here. So UV run, and I just need to know what the package is called here. And see, it's called dlt DuckDB. This is what runs my main, and DuckDB, I run it. And I'm blowing up. Why am I blowing up? Let's go to my config. It's because I did not tell my config where the env file is. So that's good of me. Let's tell it where the env file is. So model config, env file is .env. That's at the root, and encoding GTF8. I don't even know that I ever need it, but I always put it just to be specific. Let's go ahead and run this again. Okay, cool. So now package loaded, destination, DuckDB loaded data load package, same thing. And you'll notice there is a dbt Pokemon DuckDB. So let me grab my data grip here, and let's see if we can talk to that DuckDB, and let's see what's inside of it. So I'm going to add a new data source, DuckDB. And you see I use my DuckDB a little bit, it's on top. These three dots that are really small, you go to it, that gives you the where it lives. Hey, you can grab one of my PEMs if you want to. So I'm going to projects, I'm going to me, I'm going to video source, I'm going to dlt DuckDB, and I'm going to this dlt Pokemon DuckDB. And I'm going to open, and I'm going to test connection. And allegedly it works. Now, one of the things to remember, once I apply this, I put a lock on the database. So if I try to run it again, it's going to break. I have to come back here and actually undo it to make sure that it's a thing. So let's close this other database I'm working with. Let's open this up. There's my DLT Pokemon. There's my main. Let's see if I have any data in there. Before I do that, I need schemas. And I want all databases, all schemas, to make sure I have everything. There we go. There's Pokemon data now. I have 4 tables. Okay, I have DLT loads, versions, Pokemon. So let's do this. Okay, let's see what data we have. Let's make this a little larger for you guys to fill this area that I'm recording. Not like that though. Let's do that. And let's do this. Let's even maybe bump it a little bit. Okay, so one of the things I want to do DLT loads. right? There's the load ID, the inserted at, the schema version hash, and then pipeline state. There's the state, created at, version hash. So you have some metadata here you can work with, and then the dlt version and the schema and all the things here that you get with it. And then I go into Pokemon and I have data here. So I have the name, the URL, the load date, and that. And I have 4 columns currently. So name, URL, load ID, and that ID. Okay, I'm just hitting this and getting all of the Pokemon out there. Okay, one thing you'll notice that I've just noticed is that I have the Pokemon from the API endpoint, but I don't have it from the CSV. So let's go back and actually read into the error here and see what's going on. And it is showing me that 0 load packages were loaded here. So it's probably where my data was. My data was in here. I just moved it out here to the root. So let's see if that picks it up. If not, then we'll figure that out. Oh, nice. Destination error, dataset Pokemon data failed. Oh, you know why I'm denied? Because I have the lock on Pokemon DB. So let's deactivate. I mentioned earlier, never unlocked it. Good times. Ooh, still have a good problem. Okay, so let's dig into this and see what's going on. Okay, it looks like under the hood, read CSV needs pandas. So let's UV add pandas. And let's try it again. At least now I know it's grabbing my actual data here. And pandas gives you NumPy, so it should give me everything I need for free. So you got NumPy up there. Now I'm running it. And now I have both loaded. Good. So now I don't have that problem. So the problem was, my data was inside of here. I just had to move it out to root because that's what I was looking for in the data path. And then the second failure was it didn't have pandas installed. So apparently DLT needs pandas under the hood, which is fine. So I added pandas. Now let's go over to data grip and let's do a refresh on this. And let's see what that gives me. Oh, now I get team rosters. Okay, so now I have data in both places. And it brought both in. So now I could do joins on this. I can do data, whatever I want to do. Now the last thing I want to do to this is I want to break the schema a little bit and just see what happens. See what it does. See how it handles it. So let's go back over here and let's go to this data here and let's see what I could do. All right. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to rename a column. Let's rename position role. Let's see, team name. Maybe, I don't like this is captain the way it is. Let's just say I want this to be, I don't know, is leader. Okay, so I have is leader now. So what's the expected results? Before we do any kind of actual things, we want to know what the expectations are, right? Experimental setup. I expect this to not drop the column that doesn't exist anymore because is captain doesn't exist. It's going to start adding nulls to that column, and it is going to create a new column called is leader and add data to the is leader column. That's what I would expect to happen based on DLT docs. Now this is a preference choice, okay? The good and the bad here. The good, if somebody accidentally renames something, if somebody makes some decisions on the other side, your data keeps going, nothing breaks, you're picking it up as expected. The downside is that's silent. So if you're looking for is captain in your views are now broken. And is leader comes in, and now you have to figure out how to combine that data. So it's a choice that you have to make, that when DLT is doing this, how much of it you really want it to use and mess with your schema. Okay, so anyway, I did that. And I'm going to run this. This is saved. I have it on autosave. Let's run this file again. And you know why? Because me being the idiot that I am, again, did not deactivate my lock on DuckDB. Okay, let's try this again. Good, DLT runs, it loaded. It did everything you want it to do. Now I'm going to go back and show you what it did with our change to the column name. So now let's go to team rosters. And you'll see that I have is captain here from the original data. And then my second load down here, it is leader, and that data came over. So nothing failed. It just made the adjustment for me. Now, whether this is the behavior that I want or not, that's a separate business decision, but this is the expected behavior that I was expecting. So it works like you would think it would, okay? And that's really it. I'm going to really put this back just so when I give this out to you guys have something to work with. And my DuckDB, I'm going to delete it so it doesn't go up in the repo. But that is it. That is the DLT in a nutshell with DuckDB. Really simple demonstration, but a little more in depth than your basic tutorial. I'll probably have a couple more coming out that dig into some of DLT's other features and really show off what it can do. This is new for me. I'm not for it or against it. I just wanted to show you the option that's available and how it works. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.